Hello everybody, Brian Badondi has got an A-level art video for you today showing you a fantastic A-level art investigation for the AQA A-level art and design based on spiritualism, symbolism and superstition, roughly in that order. Thank you, Brian. You'll be hearing from me, Brian Badondi, throughout the video, as well as their professional poncho-wearing recorder there, who is going to give you a fantastic video based on this A-level investigation. So handing over to him now.
Thank you very much, Brian. And like Brian was saying, we have a A-level art video here showing you an absolutely fantastic coursework unit that achieved a really high passing grade, and thought it'd be useful for all of you A-level artists out there, stuck down and locked down or otherwise, to have a little look and see what it's like. In this video, they will be seeing pictures of every single part of their investigation, including the 3,000-word essay, images of the A3 sketchbook that our students use, the final piece, which was just a little bit over A1 in size, which was a really fantastic painting study, and the supporting sheets, which were a mixture between A1 and A2 in size. This is an approximation of a coursework content. It is not to be followed exactly, as everybody's personal investigation will be totally different. This student selected the title themselves, they came out with all the ideas for the investigation, but it very much has to be driven by your own ideas. This first sketchbook page, and this is of one of about 25 pages that were all completed to A3 in size, is just showing a very quick image of the title page and a little contents sheet of all of the different studies she did throughout the course. It's absolutely fine to go back and do this afterwards, as long as you're then showing that process and journey through your investigation. In the second page, we're looking at contact sheets, research, analysis, and then starting points of relevant objects to her theme. The next page, again, looking at more photography, more artist research to get the investigation started, before then looking more intensely at the artists that are going to underpin the student's investigation. Following the research and the ideas and the analysis, all to do with the artist that's shown here on this slide, you can then see where the student has included an image of their own study and investigation, which was an A2 sized painting that shows a link and a connection to the artist, as well as then bringing their own personal ideas and observations from the portrait photographs that they took. More artist research then continues in the early stages of the book, but this student in particular worked in between sometimes the book studies and then supporting sheets, which will be displayed after the sketchbook video. More artist studies, more development, plenty of analysis, colour theory, showing that the ideas are their own and giving clear analysis and understanding for where the next steps are going to be. This particular double page, not specifically about an artist or a photographer, whoever, craftsperson. This is looking at a theme and a concept. Very important that when you're doing your A-level investigation, you don't just look at an artist or a photographer, etc. Look at themes, look at concepts. In this case, a religious connection that was very relevant to their theme. This next page then showing a connection back to images that were taken as starting points, and at which point it's probably important to hear from our sponsor, Brian Badondi. Thank you, Brian.
Francis Bacon?
Francis Bacon.
There was Bacon.
Bacon.
Francis Bacon? Yeah.
Bacon.
Bacon.
Bro, oh, bacon. Bacon, sorry, I said Bacon.
Sorry.
You see, sometimes it's pronounced Bacon.
Yeah, sorry.
Francis Bacon,
Yeah,
sorry.
yes.
Thank you, Brian. That was lovely. On to the next sketchbook page following the previous one that was just shown. This is a Where Am I Now page and Where To Next. And this just shows a mixture of sheets that were done outside of the sketchbook and selected sketchbook pages that are annotated and explained in terms of where the investigation is progressing. Followed by a double page of thumbnail sketches. And who doesn't love a page of lovely thumbnail sketches? I know the examiner does. Isn't that right, Brian? Yes, it is. Thumbnail sketches, very important in communicating that you've got an ability to compose and format your ideas and try out different possibilities using all of your different observations and developments to this point. This student as well had a vast array of digital skills as well as their more traditional painting and drawing skills, which they then showcased in this double digital thumbnail designs page, where they combined together a mixture of their photographs, their drawings, different inspirational images to come out with ideas for paintings. Following those thumbnail pages that were done both digitally and traditionally, the student then looks at refining and thinking about how those can be carried forward into new ideas and new designs. Once ideas have been determined and then annotated, they are then presented. What are the different variations and how are those variations going to be selected and taken forward? Very important that you show this method of refinement in your investigation. Don't just pick one thing and go for it. You have to show that you've attempted different ideas in your work. The images on the left-hand side there were the images that inspired one of the first preliminary pieces for the test composition for the final piece, which is shown on the right-hand side of this page. On this double page, the idea for the final composition is selected, it's then annotated, the ideas for how to combine it on Photoshop are then attempted as well, and then tricky sort of textures like steam and smoke, and then combining things that would be difficult to do in real life are then done on Photoshop as a means to test digitally before then going into more traditional means of development for a final piece. As well as the overall image itself, it's also important to try parts of paintings if you are working to something that has lots of complex parts and lots of different features that are difficult to master. In this particular double page, you can see where the student has tried different samples, colour combinations, mark making techniques to see what can be achieved. A midway final piece is then attempted, which is using the previous test piece and then new ideas for constellations and symbols that were relevant to spiritualism, including the candles, the constellations, the tarot cards that you can see in the composition on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, that's titled Is It Perfect? That's then looking at other ways that could be developed and incorporated into the piece to make it even more effective and then engaging in terms of aesthetic and its spatial balance and composition. Individual elements are also analysed at very, very fine level, so they're not just picking the first thing or the first idea. In this case, where this double page on crowns is presented, the student tries lots of different ideas until the right one is selected in terms of the whole piece. It's very important that you do this and you don't just pick things at random. The whole investigation has to be underpinned by thoughtful and personal selection of the best possible ideas. This particular double page gets me very, very excited because it shows what the final piece is like in the bottom right hand of the page and the lengths that the student has gone to make sure that the book piece, which is in the bottom right again of the part of this composition, is done to the best possible level. Photoshop has been used, print screens have been recorded and annotated to show a very clear knowledge and a clear understanding that the student wants to achieve a very particular idea that is underpinned by lots of different experiments and paths of investigation that have led to this point. This double page is showing the process that led to the final piece's completion, going through all the different stages from that initial drawing and light-based combination of images to the development through to the eventual final piece. Not just important to get the aesthetic right and the skill level right, but it's essential that you get the meaning and the connection to your theme prevalent and obvious in your work. So it's always worth photographing the things that you've taken throughout your investigation and making sure that you explain the meaning and you explain the connection to your overall theme. This will be done in the essay, which I'm going to put copies of in after the sketchbook has gone past, so you'll get an idea of what the student wrote and how they put their investigation together. And this final single page here, just showing a slightly sharpened and up-tuned version of the final piece that the student created. So that completes the sketchbook part of this video. I'm now going to show you a couple of slides from the essay, which is approximately 3,000 words if you're taking the AQA as your exam board, and it's always best to make this about your work and your ideas. Don't do it about something separate. It helps you to have a dialogue with the examiner and show them the progression through your investigation. It shouldn't just be done in one go. You should have numerous drafts that are bounced backwards and forwards to your teacher. And you'll see that from the following pages that are in here, it's also essential to do things like having a bibliography at the end, making sure that all of the images that you select in your essay have got a figure reference and that are titled appropriately, and that the essay is an illustrated essay. It has to be referenced against your images and the images of artists that you investigate, leading towards how you've determined the theme for the essay and how you've resolved that into a personal investigation. And obviously, like I've just said, don't forget the bibliography like Brian Badundy would do. He would never forget that, Brian. Now, moving on from the essay, I'm going to include images of this student's sheets that were made throughout the course of completing the sketchbook and the essay. These vary between A2 to A1 in size and are a mixture of photographic recordings as well as mood boards and then studies that support the theme and the context building up towards the final piece. Moving into the sheets, this first sheet is just showing a mixture of images from mood boards and drawing studies that are all associated with her theme of the symbolism, the spiritualism, and also superstition. Each different study that is attempted is done so in quite conventional media, ink and stick, pencil, oil pastel and graphite and pencil grain to begin with, and then they develop into more selective choices later on. This next sheet is a combination of photographs and images that are used to inspire the different studies that were completed throughout. This double page is a combination of the moods and atmospheres which are annotated and supported by other images that inspired the painting and the compositions that the student made. This page selecting their favourite images that they've taken and developed, sometimes on Photoshop, other times using a mixture of stock images to generate an idea for larger scale studies. This double page here, which shows two A2 images back to back, this just has a combination of, again, artist influences, patination and colour that the student was looking to use, and then also including a sheet from the prescriptive investigation before things became solely personal, which was looking at using images of constellations and stars and planets that had a relevance to a personal investigation. So this next page here, absolutely sensational ram's skull, which is accompanied by 3 other smaller studies which were done in oil pastel and graphite and I believe paint. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. This next page using a mixture of crystals and skulls connecting to the spiritualism and symbolism connection to the work, and then presenting it in a different way to some of the more compressed and denser studies earlier on in her submission. This, even though it isn't a final piece, is one of my favourite sheets that the student produced quite early on in the investigation in terms of what the sheet was looking to produce. But I just love the colours and I love the texture, and I love the fact that it has quite a spiritual kind of calming colour palette and mood to it. Really love this. But then moving into the outcomes and the pieces which were developmental resolutions for the theme, you can't really dispute the quality that was then produced there. Very, very exciting, very, very good use of tone and colour and detail. This one in particular was like a bit of a midway final piece that was created showing the combination of unusual artist links to juxtaposition of like parts of the face and then some of the other elements of stars and constellations. This piece was then used to influence a larger outcome we just made before the final piece, using the portrait study that you've just seen in the previous image and then other parts of symbols and ideas that all connect to the theme, including the constellations, the tarot cards, the candles, the spiritual books, things like that. And then culminating in the final piece, which was an outstanding painting, including that restricted colour palettes of your Payne's grey, dark sort of like bluey colours, and then mainly black and white, but absolutely fantastic way to resolve a project, and just a brilliant unit of work from A-level. I hope this has been of some help to you guys, and I will hand over to Brian Badondi to say goodbye to you. Bibbidi boo.
That's art. That's Brian Badondi. Goodbye. And good luck.